Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Macaw Podcast Universe. It's the podcast that exists to prove people wrong when they say
sequels are never better than the originals.
It's hosted by me, Micah Macaw.
And me, Jordan Macaw.
And we cover film franchises, and we are at the very end of the DC Extended Universe.
Couldn't be timed better.
It's true. We timed this series so that we could cover The Suicide Squad pretty much almost immediately after its release.
Yes.
And here we are. We're covering The Suicide Squad. If you're expecting a bash session because you're thinking it's 2016's Suicide Squad,
scroll back on your podcast app.
Yep.
To listen to that one.
And so we're at the end of this very, very odd, weird series. I'm not going to sum up the series because you've probably been listening along. For us, though, it's very funny because we finished watching all these movies like a month ago, and then we've just been waiting for Suicide Squad to come out. So for us, it almost feels like we need a big, long preamble, but we actually don't.
Right.
But I love preambles. You know that about me. My favorite part of the Declaration of Independence. So let's talk about this movie. We saw it last night. We went to the theaters and
full crowd.
It was the first showing of the movie on Thursday, preview night.
The crowd, I thought, well, we actually were sandwiched between teenagers. I thought it could be a rowdy experience, kind of in a fun way.
Yeah.
But no.
The audience was digging it. I thought they'd be a little more vocal.
Same.
And I was excited about that, but it was a good audience.
Yeah.
Especially after we saw Old, and there were people like taking pictures of the movie during the movie.
Yeah, and our friend had to shush someone.
Yeah, so it was like, oh, this is great. People are here to see the movie, and they're excited.
Yeah.
And when we get to the post-credit scene, there was a huge reaction, which was very funny.
Yeah.
Should we keep it spoiler-free for the first part of this podcast?
That's what we did for Black Widow.
Okay, let's do it again, because this is a new release. So we will alert you with a dumb little musical cue that I created when we're getting into spoilers territory. What'd you think of the movie?
He effing did it.
And he being James Gunn.
It was really good.
It was really good.
Yeah.
And here's maybe my biggest compliment to the movie. 2 episodes ago, you heard me go on a rant about how I don't like the character Harley Quinn. Mm-hmm. And I've seen her in video games and movies and all that. And I just don't like her. And I was like, I think I just don't like the character. I need to just get over it. And I even said in that episode, the Birds of Prey episode, I said, I'm not going to get tricked. I might like Suicide Squad, but I'm not going to like Harley Quinn. I'm not going to get tricked again. She was great in the movie.
She was good.
Her storyline was great, and I was happy when she was on screen.
Yeah.
I won't say it yet, but the whole middle sequence where it's kind of just focused on her for large amounts of time, I was totally into it.
Me too. And I'm glad they waited so long to get to that point in the movie for it to happen.
Yeah.
Because I guess I was just expecting it to be like she was pretty much in every part.
Mm-hmm. And I thought the movie was great. It was style and substance.
Yeah.
Because Birds of Prey and Suicide Squad were all style, no substance. And James Gunn is great at being so stylistic, so crazy, but getting to the heart of who characters are, particularly ensembles. He's like the best ensemble guy.
He's just good at knowing who is who.
Yeah.
What type of person, or I don't know, what this character represents in this group kind of thing.
Totally.
I will say, if no one knows this, because I think I knew it was rated R, but I didn't know it was going to be this rated R. It was a gore fest.
It was. It was like Tarantino-esque levels of gore.
Yeah, and just a warning too, I feel like there is a lot of animal death in the movie.
Yeah.
So, just warning on that too, for anyone.
Yeah. It's just crazy because 2016 was such a big burn.
Yeah.
And 2016's Suicide Squad. And I while I didn't know anything about the characters, the trailers were good. But that movie was so offensively bad that it felt like, just as someone who likes movies, this is offensive and I hate this.
Yeah.
And so, though it was James Gunn, I was like, okay, he's going to do it, but I'm nervous and I'm scared about this because that other, it's like, I just don't see this working. And he's just perfect for it.
On the one hand, too, I mean, he came into the Marvel franchise at a time when we needed something like the Guardians movies.
Absolutely.
A absolute refresher, reboost. I don't know, just a complete refresher to a franchise that had been starting to feel like to become to sound the same and look the same leading up to it.
Totally.
And this is, so with him doing Suicide Squad, I was a little nervous too. Like, can he even do it though? And it's like, but he did like rejuvenate the Marvel franchise for me.
Yeah.
So
and
he
took a property which is pretty equivalent to Guardians, as in it's like it's not a beloved comic book series.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it has a lot of fans, but this isn't guaranteed by any means. And same with Guardians. He took something that is like maybe C level Marvel, maybe even D, and made it so that everyone's like, oh, this is like one of the best things ever.
Yeah. Not just best things in Marvel's, best things ever. That's how good he made it.
And I think, I mean, not to, because we'll say this at the end, our DC rankings, but this one is going to be pretty high on both of our lists, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we thought of it. Of course, we'll get into much more detail in the post-spoiler section of this. But let's talk about how the movie was made, shall we? So it's directed by James Gunn. It's written by James Gunn. The cinematography is by Henry Braham, who did Guardians 2. So we've talked about him before. The music was by John Murphy, who did Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, 28 Days Later, Miami Vice, Sunshine.
Who is this?
Amongst others. This is the composer, John Murphy.
Okay.
And I thought the score was great.
Yeah, I loved it, especially the big climactic moment of the movie later on.
Yeah.
The music was awesome.
Yeah. And I feel like whoever was the drummer on this score was having the time of his life.
Okay.
The drums were fun. It kind of had a punk alternative rock edge to it. And another note, because Jordan and I are now beloved, like Guardians 1 and 2, like all the songs that are chosen in those movies are now like very close to Jordan and I's heart. We listen to them all the time. Mm-hmm. And you and I were going into this and we're going, well, at the very least, we're going to get some new songs to learn about.
And as you know from Suicide Squad 2016, it was full of classic rock, just a dump.
Yeah.
And it had no purpose.
No purpose. But right when this movie starts, they play Johnny Cash's Folsom Prison Blues. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh man, he's already into it. And most of the songs I didn't know, and they were very different from how he would approach Guardians, which I was happy about.
And it is nice. We knew that the music was going to be good and have a purpose.
Yeah.
But, one reason why it's so good in Guardians is because it's so important to Chris Pratt's character.
Yeah.
But in this movie, there's really no character where that's like important to them. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of nice that they didn't. It would have felt too much like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good.
So the movie comes out August 5th, 2021. It has a $185 million budget.
Okay.
So it's a pretty big budget. Last night it made 6.7. And they're expecting
we saw it on a Thursday opening weekend.
Yeah. They're expecting this weekend for it to be about 30 million minimum.
Okay.
Like 30 to 40. So it's going to be tough for it to be a success.
Is it so expensive just because of adding things on as they went?
I think it's expensive because of the cast, how large the cast is. Because I also learned that they didn't. There's actually not there are visual effects in this movie. Obviously, there's a shark character.
Yeah.
But they did just about everything they could to make everything practical.
Really?
And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But actually, I can tell you, like the final set piece, that's like a 3 times like football field that they designed, like this huge
that building?
Well, no, like when they're outside and all the
got it.
stuff's going on.
Yeah.
Um,
Where did they do that?
at like the lot, I think they just built this huge 3 football fields worth.
It seems like
of a set.
there were several filming locations because in the credits they were thinking so many different countries.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't even notice.
I saw
that.
like there was like a Panama unit, so I'm assuming a lot, maybe. So a lot of this is set on an island, and this is a dumb question. The island's not a real island, right?
No, it's a fictional country.
Yeah, but
That's not a dumb question. I actually just read. I was reading David Sims' review, and he said the fictional country, and I was like, oh, okay.
So I'm assuming that's where they shot a lot of that country was in Panama, and then I saw they also thinked there was like a New Zealand part, which might be for Weta potentially. And then I saw something for Quebec as well.
Okay. Yeah. So they
and then
were
assuming Warner Brothers.
Yeah. They're going all over the place. But yeah, so I think that's going to probably cut down your budget using less visual effects.
Mm-hmm.
But the cast is crazy. And I mean, some of these are like A-listers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Sylvester Stallone's in this. I'm sure he didn't like.
Who was Sylvester?
He's King Shark.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw his title credit and then I forgot that he was in the movie. And the whole time I'm like, I wonder who the shark is.
Yeah.
So it was Sylvester. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And very funny, Mike Combs pointed out, he was like, yeah, I love Groot Shark.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, it's the same character. And I went, it's like almost identical. And I love that.
He just speaks, he's more of a vocabulary.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's going to be tough for this movie to make its money all the way back. But I think some of that you got to contribute to like this Delta variant that's coming around.
Part of it's like so how many people are going to see it on HBO?
How many people, it came out on HBO same time. Mike watched it on HBO Max.
Well, what's confusing, so they give them such a ginormous budget.
Yeah.
And then they're going to same day release it on HBO.
I know.
How can they possibly make money back? It seems dumb.
It does seem kind of dumb. But we'll see. We will see. We're still kind of... I've heard so many different opinions about the HBO same day and date release strategy.
Yeah.
And for a little bit, it was just kind of looking like, well, it seems like the theater people are just going to go to the theater anyway.
Yeah.
But also like repeat customers, I think you're missing out on.
Yeah.
Because like if we wanted to see it again, I'd be like, let's just put it on the TV.
Why would we go to the theater?
Yeah, because we've seen the theater experience. Now we can watch it at home. I hope the movie makes its money back. I mean, the reviews are crazy.
Yeah.
Leading up to this movie, I follow James Gunn on Twitter, and it was like he was just retweeting all these people who were saying it was the best, and I was just trying not to let it.
Hopes up.
Yeah, but I mean, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, critics love it.
Yeah.
Audience members love it. People are loving it. So, I think at the least, I don't think this is going to be a failure for Warner Brothers either way.
Yeah, true.
Because I think they'll take into consideration the COVID stuff and how people are starting to get worried again. And I think they're going to take into consideration the day and date release.
Yeah.
They have to.
Yeah.
But who knows? Maybe it'll smash. Who knows? I hope so. And that's like, it's projected to make 30 to 40 in the U.S. So internationally,
that's true. Yeah.
Hopefully, we can throw another 20 on there, and then it's made half its budget back. So now let's talk about what happened here. Originally, in 2016, before they had released David Ayer's Suicide Squad, they said they were like, okay, we're gonna make a sequel like pretty right away.
Yeah.
David Ayer just needs to make his movie Bright with Will Smith, and then he can start working on Suicide Squad 2. Now, of course, everyone hates Suicide Squad, and so
gone.
They're like, nah, you're out of here.
Yeah.
And then so in early 2017, they start courting Mel Gibson to direct.
What? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
That would have been a terrible movie.
Yeah, it's not a good choice at all.
I don't even understand that for a second.
I don't either.
What could he have to offer?
I don't know.
That's weird.
It's very weird. It's very weird. And his directing style is just not even in the same ballpark here.
No. I mean, yeah, he's done things violently and graphic, but it's like isn't he more like, I don't know, maybe he can branch out. It's just he makes historical movies.
Yeah, he's not a funny filmmaker.
No.
He's in funny movies where he is funny, but he doesn't have that in his bones. Not that these have to be laugh riots, but they go through like a ton of directors and a ton of scripts. I'm not going to go through all of them.
Okay.
But
I mean, was there another one that you were like, huh?
Well, what was funny is Jean Colette Serra, French, was like going to direct the movie.
Who's that?
And he drops out and does Jungle Cruise, which came out last weekend.
Yeah, and everyone loved it.
I think it's actually doing pretty good.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, I think the reviews are like pretty middling.
Is that release? Is it premiere at Disney Plus?
I think you can watch it on Disney Plus as well.
But not premiere. Do you have to pay $30 on Disney Plus? Okay.
Yeah. Only Pixar movies they let you just watch so that they can tarnish the brand of Pixar. And then they're like, okay, finally, here's our director. It's Gavin O'Connor, and he's directed Miracle, the Kurt Russell movie, hockey movie.
Okay.
Warrior, the Tom Hardy movie.
Okay.
And then earlier last year, he came out with Ben Affleck, The Way Back, where he's like an alcoholic coaching a basketball team.
Yeah.
Which I've heard is actually a somewhat charming movie.
Yeah.
But he starts kind of getting fed up with the project just not getting the ball rolling. So he drops out so he can do The Way Back.
Okay.
And then finally, now we got to talk about it.
Yeah.
The tweets. I'm not going to go through the tweets, of course, but James Gunn, he had in the past, like 10 years prior, made a ton of really off-color, bad tweets. Really bad stuff.
This came to light after Guardians 2.
After Guardians 2. So I think Guardians 2 came out in 2018.
Yeah.
And in July of 2018, Disney fires James Gunn from directing Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yep.
And once those tweets had resurfaced, James Gunn tweeted this. He said, "Many people who have followed my career know when I started, I viewed myself as a provocateur, making movies and telling jokes that were outrageous and taboo. As I've discussed publicly many times, as I've developed as a person, so has my work and my humor. It's not to say I'm better, but I'm very, very different than I was a few years ago. Today, I try to root my work in love and connection and less in anger. My days saying something just because it's shocking and trying to get a reaction are over."
Mm-hmm.
So,
huge controversy when it came out, not just because of the subject of the tweets, but when that came out, some cast members of Guardians, specifically Dave Bautista, was like, "Oh, he's not directing the third one. I'm not in it." And there's nothing you can do to get me to be in that movie if he's not directing it.
He'll break the contract. He's
and
not
then
going to be in it.
I think someone else went on board with him too. Maybe one or two other cast members. And
I feel like maybe Saldana did. I don't think Chris Pratt ever did.
I don't remember, but
I don't know
it was
for
like
sure.
more than just him, but he kind of started it.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, if they're not going to be in the third one and James Gunn's not going to direct it, just don't make that movie.
Totally. So.
And then, like a classic comic book story.
In October, just 3 months later.
Disgraced director James Gunn is hired by DC, or by Warner Brothers.
Yes.
To make a Suicide Squad movie. So not only does he go to the dark side, he goes to the dark side to make the villain movie. So it's like he's becoming a villain.
Yeah.
What an interesting story.
It truly is.
So he's making the movie official. Guys, he made the movie that we just watched. But throughout all of it, he has now been rehired as the Guardians 3 director. And
Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special.
That one too. So he is back.
Uh-huh.
Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, and I think it gets more interesting when we double click on some of those details. So Warner Brothers hires him in October, and they Alan Horn, the CCO of Disney, calls James Gunn the day after he was hired and says, we want you back.
Whoa.
And that was only recently, like in the past year, that they talked about that publicly. Because according to us, he was rehired in March of 2019.
Yeah.
So like 8 months after, but Disney was already talking to him for like 3 months before that. And like, we do want you to do Guardians. And so James Gunn calls Feige and he's like, they want me to do Guardians 3 and I still want to do it. And Feige's like, great. We will put it on the back burner, and you just make a great movie. Make Suicide Squad, make it the best movie you can, and this project will be waiting for you when we get back.
Wow. Oh, Feige.
Yeah, I love the guy.
Yeah.
And the fact also that he stood up for Scarlett Johansson as she's
Oh, did he really?
suing
I haven't
Disney.
been following up on that, so he has.
Yeah, although I didn't totally dive into that. I just saw a headline of Feige. I've read about Scarlett Johansson, and if you don't know, folks, she's suing Disney because they breached contract with her and released it on
Black Widow.
Released Black Widow on PVOD. Problem being, she doesn't care about the money, I'm sure. But
they did something that they said they weren't going to do on paper on a contract that was signed.
And if they break that contract with one of the biggest stars in the world, what are they going to do to the little guy?
Yeah. What have they already done to the little guy?
Yeah. And if you're like, but come on, it's Disney. Disney's like the worst corporation in the world. They're up there. They're terrible. They make great stuff that we love, but don't stick up for Disney in this fight, please.
Yeah.
Scarlett's in the right.
Yeah.
And go Scarlett. She's our superhero. So then they hire James Gunn, and they're like, hey, can you do Superman?
Which one?
That's what Warner Brothers says.
Just a Superman movie?
Yeah, can you make a Superman movie? And he's like,
guys, do you know who I am?
well, he just says no.
He's like, you're probably getting me confused with someone else. 'Cause I did make a movie called Super, but it's not a Superman movie.
So he says, no, I don't want to do that. But he says, I would be interested in doing a Suicide Squad movie. And they're like...
They got dollar signs in their eyes, and above their heads were more dollar signs, and they were going, ka-ching!
So they say, okay. And he sits down and watches the movie for the first time, because he had never seen the 2016. And he claims that there was stuff, of course, he didn't like, but he liked a lot of it. Yeah. And this whole time, he's been very much like David Ayer paved the way. He's been really nice to me. This has not been...
Why would he say anything bad?
Well, but also David Ayer has also said, like, I've been having fun on conversations with James and stuff like that. Like,
that's good.
We're not mad at each other.
That's good.
And David Ayer is still like, you guys still have not seen the movie that I made.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We don't need to see it. But so James Gunn sits down and watches the movie, and Warner Brothers is like, okay, you can make this movie, but basically the caveat is we want you to do anything you want, and we're not going to...
The caveat is Keys to the Kingdom.
Yeah. They say, like, everything's on limits. They
were like, you watch Suicide Squad, but have you seen any of the others? We don't care anymore. Do anything you want.
And they say the only thing we encourage you is we'd like it if Margot Robbie was in the movie.
Okay.
And he watches Suicide Squad, and he's like, yeah, cool.
I mean, why wouldn't they put her in the movie?
Yeah. And she's great in the movie.
Uh-huh.
He does say, like, I don't want to do it without an R rating.
Okay.
And at first the studio's like, no way. And then they're like, okay, whatever.
I mean, yeah.
And so
they're like, is this even really a franchise anymore?
Right. Now let's talk about the R rating of this movie. We've talked so many times about R ratings in comic book movies. And particularly, I'm just thinking about our Birds of Prey episode. We're like, why did they make this R? They would have made like $50 million extra if they just cut some F words and deleted some blood. Mm-hmm. And so now you're like, but Micah, you're saying that you like this movie. Jordan, you're saying you like this movie. What's the deal? Where's the being a little hypocritical? And I think that the R rating is actually like in the DNA of how this movie is built from the ground up.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Whereas the Harley Quinn movie, it feels like a byproduct of them just making it R, sort of just haphazardly almost.
Well, it's like she's a bad guy, so it has to be an R-rated movie, right?
Yeah.
Bad guy, wink, wink, maybe.
But this was like, no, he wants to make a gore fest, very stylistic gore fest. Cool. And he wants it to be able to just kind of... The great thing about this movie is for the first time, the characters are actually bad guys. Because in one of our biggest complaints on Suicide Squad, the whole the main reason that movie doesn't work is because they're like, we're all bad guys, but we like being good and we're good at heart.
Yeah. Oh, I think even some of the characters though were like they've done bad things and that's why they're in prison, but they don't believe that they're bad.
Yeah. And this movie,
And no, that's what I'm saying about this movie because I
Yeah.
think they
Oh.
achieve it. I think both movies
Yes.
were going for the same thing, and this one actually did it.
yeah.
When the other movie was like, it was just like, yeah, they've done bad things, but like you said, as we go through the movie, it's like I don't see where they're a bad guy though.
Yeah.
And this movie, it's like I am seeing that absolutely.
Well, and I think one of the key scenes in this whole movie, and it's toward the beginning, is when Idris Elba is talking to his daughter, and they just wind up screaming at each other and telling each other, F you, F you, F you.
Yeah.
And when you're sitting there, you're like, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
And so you're like, this is a bad guy. Like, it's not like, I'm a bad guy, wink. It's like, no, he just cussed out his own daughter. This guy sucks.
And told her to get lost.
Yeah. So that's a huge fix that James Gunn made on this. They're actually bad guys. And he commented on...
And he somehow still made that character likable.
Yes. He makes you confused at the end. That's what's beautiful, is it's like, I guess... Wait, they were really bad, but I liked them? And that's one of the things, because like Guardians, as he said, you know they're all good-natured inside. Maybe they have a hard time expressing that. Maybe they do bad things.
But half of them are selfish people.
Yeah, but they're trying to do the right thing.
Yes.
And this is like, they're not necessarily trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So, now back to this. I know I got a lot here, but they had scheduling issues with Will Smith, hence him not being in this movie.
Okay.
Now, I've heard that originally Idris Elba was supposed to be the character Deadshot.
Even if Will Smith was in this movie.
Like after there were scheduling conflicts, like they cast Idris Elba and he was supposed to be the character that Will Smith plays.
Okay. Yeah.
But Idris Elba has said, no, that's not what happened.
Okay.
But you'll see that place. You'll see it in like the trivia of this movie and stuff like.
Oh, okay.
But apparently James Gunn wrote Bloodsport as the character.
Okay.
Like from the get-go.
But if they would have gotten Will Smith, the studio would be like, why would we say no to Will Smith? Sorry, James Gunn. You got to have Deadshot.
I guess, yeah.
I feel like that's what would happen.
I mean, this is probably like he's probably still writing it and they're in early
that's like
talks
super
and stuff.
pre-production.
But it sounded like the impression I got is Gunn was pretty much like, that's what I want to do. And I want to work with Idris Elba. So let's get Idris Elba.
Yeah.
Not like, let's just replace him.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know that Will Smith would have been good in this. Like, he would have been better in this than the other movie, obviously.
Yeah.
Because of the script's better and you have a better director. But Idris Elba was incredible. I mean, I've never seen him in anything I don't like either.
He was so good.
So he was amazing. It's like I didn't miss Will Smith, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, and I think what helps is Will Smith is one of the most charismatic actors in the world. He rules. When you see him, even when they're like, hey, he's a bad guy, you're like, you're going to have to really prove it because I just want to hang out with this guy. He's cool. And
Yeah.
Idris Elba he can skirt the line because he's done a lot of different roles. Whereas Will Smith, this is not a critique. He's the good guy.
Yeah.
He's like a Tom Cruise type where it's like, I show up, I'm the good guy.
Yeah, one of the most iconic villain roles that Idris Elba has fulfilled is Charles Minor in The Office.
True. Yeah. So Batista was also supposed to be Peacemaker, but he was filming Army of the Dead.
Okay.
And I think that works in our favor. Batista would have been great, but I think John Cena is great in this. And I think him and James Gunn had a real camaraderie. Hence, James Gunn just in quarantine just started randomly writing Peacemaker, the TV series, for fun.
Yeah.
And HBO is like, yeah, we'll order it. And he's like, okay.
Yeah. It's like, I was just doing this for fun, kicks and giggles.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, you can continue to do that. We'll just pay you for it.
And then, let's see. So it's in the trailers too, but you know when King Shark rips apart that man?
Yeah.
That is, of course, the shark is fake.
What?
But that's a practical effect.
That's a real corpse.
It's a
real corpse.
That's a real, like, they built like a
That's
thing
cool.
and they ripped it apart.
That's cool.
And it makes sense because that shot looks so good.
It does.
And then finally, that's what I got.
Okay, so Idris Elba, is Charles Minor in The Office. He is also in Beasts of No Nation. Oh, maybe we didn't cover him in Thor Ragnarok. He's in Thor Ragnarok. And he's also in Luther. He is Luther.
He's in The Wire, which I think kind of gets him into the American audience.
I don't know. I think I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And then John Cena is in Trainwreck, 12 Rounds. He's, the WWE
Blockers.
fighter. What?
The movie Blockers.
Yep. Bumblebee. Is he in a Fast movie? Yep. F9. He's in F9.
Yeah.
I mean, it's John Cena. And it's almost borderline I'll see anything he's in these days.
Except you haven't seen any of those except for
this is
Suicide Squad.
This is the story of John Cena.
Okay.
Didn't care about him. Always thought it was. This is something that as I've gotten older, I've just gotten over. But he was a wrestler, like one of those fake wrestlers, and now he thinks he can just act. Ugh, yeah, boring.
And now you're like, oh, that makes sense why they are so charismatic.
One that makes sense. And then two, he's in Trainwreck, like I said, and I saw that movie. It felt like against my will because I really didn't want to watch it. Ended up liking that movie, and he was in it, and I'm like, what? He's actually pretty good. And that's kind of been the beginning of John Cena for me.
Yeah, you've seen 2 of his movies.
That's not true. And then Nathan Fillion's in this movie. He plays TDK. That's Castle.
We have to save
Serenity.
Him for spoilers.
Oh, he is in Firefly. He's the Firefly guy.
Yeah.
Also, Flula Borg is in this, who is in Pitch Perfect 2, Trolls World Tour.
We have to cover Pitch Perfect at some point.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
3 of those.
Yeah. I've only seen the first one.
Me too.
He does a ton of voice acting, and he's one of the best guests on Comedy Bang Bang.
Very funny guy.
And then Mei-Ling Ne, I don't know, her last name is NG. So I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I absolutely did. She plays Mongol. She is in...
Who is Mongol?
That's the girl hanging off of the helicopter. She's orange.
Oh yeah.
She is in Wonder Woman. She is Orana. I don't know.
Probably one of the what is that place called? Amazons.
She's also in The Scorpion King, Book of Souls, Debt Collectors, Blood Hunters, just a ton of action. And then Pete Davidson, or should I say the King of Staten Island?
Yes.
So he's in that movie. He's also in The Dirt, I guess.
Oh, man, weird.
Also Set It Up and SNL, of course. And then I wanted to give little shout outs as well to the people in The Room with Viola Davis.
Oh, yeah,
they were all so good.
They were all very funny.
So Steve Agee, I don't know. He is in, that's the guy with the glasses and the facial hair. Who at one point was like, I'm so effing good at my job. He is in New Girl Superstore. He's in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh.
He is, I'm kind of seeing him.
Really?
Yeah, he is in, it's volume 2 when they captured Groot. And Taserface is like...
Oh, he's like one of the Ravagers?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I could see that.
His face. And then Tinashi Kajezi plays Flo. She is in Cold Case, Powers, Dynasty, Valor, and a ton of other TV shows. As well as Jennifer Holland, who plays Amelia. She is in American Horror Story, the upcoming American Horror Story season. Oh, no, a past American Horror Story season. American Pie presents Book of Love. Beauty Juice, Brightburn.
Beauty Juice, ew.
Yeah. And that is the... Oh, no, that's not everyone.
Well,
I haven't gone over Ratcatcher.
Yeah, go over Ratcatcher. I just wanted to say that Sean Gunn is in this movie, and he gets billing. And the movie, I was like, he got billing for one line.
I know.
But he's Weasel. He's the voice of the Weasel.
And he was in it.
I'm sure he was on set as...
But you saw the scene that he was in.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
So Sean Gunn is in it as like a prisoner in the thing, but he also does the voice of Weasel And I'm sure that he was on set because, he does the on-set rocket for Guardians. So I'm sure he was like running around doing the weird weasel stuff.
Funny.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So the rat catcher is Daniela Melchior. She is in Massa Fresca. She is in like hardly any American things.
She was so good.
Yes, The Black Book of Father Denis, The Payback, and those titles that I'm reading are not actually American movies, but it's like translated.
Okay.
She was so amazing.
She was fantastic. I mean, she was like, she almost, I think it's kind of like a 3 or 4 way tie for like best performance, but she's definitely up there, and maybe the most emotional core of the movie.
Yeah. And then Sylvester Stallone plays Noe, the shark. We
know who Sylvester is.
But yeah, it's Adrian, it's Rocky. And then I am pretty sure we have talked about David Dastmalchian, who plays Polka Dot Man because of Ant-Man. So I'm not going to get into him.
He's great in this movie.
He plays the Russian in Ant-Man.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That's it? Okay.
That's most.
So before we jump into the plot, one last thing before we lose you people who haven't watched the movie yet. I wanted to say something that James Gunn did that has so far been overlooked in the things I have read. He did a very brilliant stroke of genius, and that is this. He did not include any references or any appearances of the Joker.
Yes.
And I think that is one of the smartest. I know that that's like, duh. It's one of the smartest things this movie does.
Yes.
Because if you remember, in Birds of Prey, they still have flashbacks of Joker. And she talks about Joker so much in that movie
and
that it sort of overshadows the whole movie.
It does. And you just listened to our episode of that a week ago. So
2 weeks ago. Because Wonder Woman 1984.
Oh, right. But you just listen to Birds of Prey and hear us talk about it. And it's like, that's not necessarily wrong to put Joker in that movie because I think it could have been a good heartbreak movie.
Yeah.
But it was not done well.
No.
And best case scenario, just don't talk about it.
Yeah. So just having it in here like this is just a stroke of genius. So now let us enter the movie. Do you agree?
So spoilers galore.
Spoilers galore. Hit it, Micah.
Spoiler alert! 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 Spoiler alert!
The movie begins, and we are introduced to Michael Rooker.
Mm-hmm.
And
who is the savant?
He's this. Yes, good job. Wow. I didn't remember. I was just looking up stuff. That's why. Actually, I didn't remember even just now.
He is in. It looks like he's some kind of solitary confinement recess time.
Yeah.
He's bouncing a ball and kills a bird with it.
Oh, and like I said, the movie starts with Folsom Prison Blues, and immediately I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna love this."
Immediately, I laughed for different reasons, to which Micah didn't know.
I didn't pick up on it.
But if you've watched I Think You Should Leave season 1, and you've seen the sketch where they're in the studio, and Tim Robinson's like, skeletons and their money, blah, 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 blah. And then this Folsom City Blues song played, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I guess that's the song?
Yeah.
I was laughing already. So 1 second in.
Good joke, yeah. So the movie starts, we see Michael Rooker, and there's this bird, like he's throwing this bouncing ball, and he has all these X's around his outdoor confinement, and he can bounce them all to himself. And then he throws them in a way that they hit this bird and kill it. Mm-hmm. And then Amanda Waller shows up. But before that, when it shows him, and it spent...
In the puddle.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
This movie is like... The whole time, it's like, this is an artist is directing the movie. Because as you know, like... A lot of the times in franchise movies like this where it's superheroes, there's not a lot of artistry that goes into it. It's almost like it's just an action movie.
Yeah.
Okay? So there can't be art, or that's not a focal point.
And there's a lot of stuff that's just like, this is a comic book panel.
Yes.
Like, that's what he made it look like.
Yes, it's like remembering that it is a comic book.
Yes. And when it started like this, I was like, this is what I thought was going to happen. And I got really excited. It still would have been cool if this happened, but it's okay that it didn't. Starts with him, and we're spending like 2 minutes with him right off the bat, or at least it felt like that. And I'm going, no way. He just pulled the rug out from under us with all the trailers and stuff not really having this character in it. This is our main character.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is insane.
And the way they did it, even to the beach, they're on the mission, and it's all shown from his perspective.
Totally.
So it's like, even if Idris Elba is the main character, and like John C., you have like all those other people who
like he's going to be the heart.
He's going to be the heart, and like it's all going to be kind of like experienced through him.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe there's a world too where like these other characters have done missions before already, and this is his first time, and that's why we're spending. He's like the audience.
Yeah.
Didn't happen that way, but that's fine.
Yeah.
So
then
Viola Davis comes in, and she explains everything in this movie within a minute to Michael Rooker that took a whole act of the first movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where she explains what he's doing, what it means for him if he does it, and the objective.
Uh-huh. And they just get it out of the way. And already, so it's like they have to go over stuff that's been gone over in Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Like injecting the...
but they did it so fast.
They did it fast and so much more well-written. And part of that is, let's not forget, 2016 was edited by trailer editors, not film editors. That's part of the...
But that was also...
reason.
That part of the movie where it was all style, no substance, because they, she's going through the files and it's taking forever for every character. And for this, it's just Michael Rooker. They put the thing in him, and then he gets on a plane and you see some other people.
Absolutely. It's great.
Yeah.
And by the way, the person who puts the chip in him is a famous comic book writer.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's like the run that James Gunn did not base this on, because he didn't take a direct storyline, but it was like the run that inspired him.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So
I like that.
I thought that was pretty cool. So they get on this helicopter and they go to the beach.
Well, who does he meet?
But remember, it goes back to them. No.
There's some time spent in the helicopter before they get out of it.
You're right. So we kind of meet Pete Davidson, the Black Knight.
Oh, let me look it up.
We meet Harley Quinn, who shows up late.
Yeah.
TDK.
And that was hilarious because they said, what does your name mean? Oh, he's Blackguard. Pete Davidson's Blackguard. Which he just has guns on him, so you're just like, okay, he's really good with weapons.
Yeah.
And then TDK, they're asking him, that's the castle guy, what do you do? What does that stand for? And he just says, that's just my name.
Yeah.
Very funny joke with that. And then Flula is Javelin.
Javelin.
And he carries a javelin.
Yeah.
And I love his outfit. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And his hair is so crazy too.
And then we see Rick Flag again.
Rick Flag. Every time they've said his name, all I can think of is Randall Flag.
From The Stand?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But Rick Flag, of course, he's in this again. It makes sense that he's in this. I think he's fine.
I think he's great.
Yeah, because they gave him something to do.
Particularly toward the end. Yeah. When he makes a stand and stuff, it's nice.
Yeah.
And then...
So he's the corporal. He's still in charge of everything.
And he's not a bad guy. He's a military man.
Yeah.
And so they go
Just remember in the first movie when they introduced his character, and he's the best of the best. So he's perfect for CIA Black Ops stuff.
Yeah.
And all they show is him killing people.
Yeah. Breaking into rooms and just killing people.
Just shooting immediately. It could be anybody in that room.
So they go to this beach. They come down. The weasel gets dropped down, and the weasel drowns.
It can't swim. Oh, the weasel is it's my favorite.
It doesn't blink, I don't think.
Not really.
It looks so gross, and it
looks like a puppet. The animation's good.
Oh, the animation's amazing. The visual effects in this movie are so good.
Yeah.
But so Michael Rooker takes the weasel to the shore, and he's like, the weasel's dead. And right then and there, I was like, what is this movie that we're watching?
And this movie is funny right off the bat.
Yes.
Because, the last one, and just kind of superhero movies in general, it's not a comedy first. Yeah. This movie is absolutely a comedy first. There's a lot of funny stuff going on. I think it's definitely that first. There's a lot of that going on. So even when the weasel is drowning and all the people in the behind the computers, someone says, someone didn't check if the weasel could swim.
Yeah.
And they just look at the guy who's responsible for knowing all of those things.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it was so funny.
So funny. The only thing I would say, and this is not a complaint, I think that like the middle, probably hour and 20 minutes, I did not find all that funny compared to like the first 30.
Okay. And that makes sense. I mean, it's a very strong opening.
I just think that like after Peacemaker and Bloodsport like kill that village, the movie's just like not that funny anymore. And I don't think that there's still jokes, but it's not like doing as many. I think that's all it is.
But it's definitely more lighthearted.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And again,
than usual.
I'm not complaining about that aspect.
I know.
But like I think of Guardians 2, and that's like I laugh in every scene. And this movie was not like that.
Okay. Speak for yourself.
That's okay though.
Speak for yourself.
Okay. So they storm this beach. We find out that TDK is the
detachable kid or something?
The detachable kinetic or something, or maybe it is the detachable. It's the detachable kid. You're right.
I think that's what they said. And what he does is he can detach his appendages. So he detaches his arms.
Which was the funniest moment of the whole movie.
It was the funniest one of the funniest moments, and the arms just float pretty slowly to the people with guns, and the hands are just like kind of slapping. People.
Yeah, and the way he has to move his body to control it is so
is that
funny.
A real character?
I have no idea.
Well, before that even happened, we got a real reality check on how gory this movie was going to be. They started strong. Pete Davidson's the first one to storm the beach.
Oh, right.
And they're not supposed to. They need to
he like
figure out
turned
what
him
they're
in.
doing.
So he's like, hey guys, like
It's
remember our
me.
deal.
I am not kidding, blow his face off.
And then in his blood, it spells the Suicide Squad.
No, it says Warner Brothers Presents.
Oh, that's what it says. Which is it's a great way to start it because it's also like a mission statement for the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's kind of saying it's like you love Guardians, but this isn't Guardians, but it's still going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so just be with us here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene's great. Like almost everyone on the beach gets killed. Captain Boomerang dies, so he made one of the smartest decisions the filmmakers made.
And getting rid of Jai Courtney.
Getting rid of Mr. Potato Head himself.
Yeah.
And so he gets rid of him. And
Lula dies. He gets shot like crazy. And I mean, it's like, I was bummed for some of them because I was like,
there's more there.
I kind of want more
but,
Pete Davidson.
Oh yeah.
Or like, I want some more Flula. But okay, I want heck of a more Weasel.
Yeah.
But.
And so most of them die.
Besides Harley and then the Mongol, so chaos is ensuing. They're just shooting everyone like crazy. Bombs are exploding. And Mongol, she jumps onto a helicopter and just starts swinging from it and is screaming bloody murder. Like, what did I just do? And the helicopter is like slowly crashing to the shore. And she is just screaming.
Yeah.
It is so funny.
It's very funny. And that great, I love that shot when it's doing all the cast and stuff. And the camera's like running across the beach and like kind of out of focus, like looking at everyone that's dead. Mm-hmm. There was something like so intense about that shot that I really loved. Mm-hmm. And I was reading David Sims' review of the movie, and one of the things he pointed out that I really like is that he's like, we're in this state where we have several superhero movies a year, and James Gunn is challenging the audience to see if they're going to care about someone who throws polka dots, someone who controls rats, and he's like, there's a character named TDK, no one knows who these people are unless you're like steeped in the lore. Yeah. And he is like, are you gonna follow? It's like a challenge to the audience. Like, are you gonna follow? And then having them just murdered willy-nilly is kind of like, are you still gonna care?
Yeah.
And it's almost like a what's the term when you're like going against the grain of a genre?
I mean, you can say that.
Well, but it's like a term, you know, when you change expectations, or you know, like Scream is of horror movies.
Commentary.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of that. That's not the word I'm looking for, but not regressive. No, someone's probably gonna text us and let us know.
Yeah,
and then I'll have to be like, what were we talking about? But. So it does all that, and then it says 3 days earlier. And then we get introduced to Bloodsport.
He is in prison, of course. They all are. And he's cleaning.
Yeah. Keep going. I've talked so
he
much.
He cleans a toilet, some phones, scrapes some gum.
A little too much detail.
So yeah, so he is cleaning, and Viola Davis comes up to him with all of her employees talking about him, how he was raised. The moment he was born, he was trained by his father to be the best killer there is. He can turn anything into a weapon. He's the best. Also, he's messed up though.
Yeah.
And she wants him to join the next mission that she has, and he won't do it. He has no interest in it. And then she tells him that he is a visitor and it's his daughter. So his daughter tells him that she got in trouble for stealing, or got arrested for stealing, and she stole a watch. And he is not mad that she stole the watch. He's mad that she got caught. And she's mad at him that's why he's mad at her.
Yeah.
He's not a good father. He's actually not even a father because he's in prison. He's not even there. And then they even talk about well, mom's not here anymore, so it's all on you. And he's like, yeah, that's just like her to put everything on me. So it's like, huh?
Yeah, he's not a good guy.
Gross. And then, like you said, they just start screaming F you at each other. And she just, in that heated moment, is telling him, like, I want you to be a dad.
Yeah.
But I'm ashamed of you.
Totally.
So then he meets up with Viola Davis again, and pretty much Viola Davis threatens him with, if you don't do this for me, your daughter is going to go to actual prison because as a 16-year-old, she can be tried as an adult.
And they do so much better in this movie of making her a bad guy.
Absolutely. Because in the first movie, they did not know what they were doing with her.
Well, yeah, and she is a bad guy in that one, but it comes across as like, is this a performance thing or like what? Like you're just annoyed, and this one you're like some like when they said that thing, and then it turns to when she's like, your daughter can get killed or whatever, and then it turns to the IT guy, and he's like, we wouldn't do that, right? And she doesn't answer. I was like, oh, okay. Like, she's going to get her comeuppance in this movie in a much more satisfying way.
Yeah, well, in the last movie, she doesn't even get hurt.
Yeah. So,
really?
Yeah, it's like in the last movie, it's ends justify the means, and the movie ends, and they're like, see? In this movie, it's like, the ends don't justify the means. She was wrong.
Yeah.
And we're not okay with her being wrong.
Yeah. So, by threatening his on his daughter's life, Bloodsport decides to join her. Oh, and she wants him to be the leader.
Yeah.
She says she's going to make a leader out of him. And he doesn't care. He's just like, I will do this thing, whatever you need.
Yeah.
So we know a little bit about him and how he's really dangerous and a bad guy. He was also an assassin like Bloodshot?
No, Deadshot.
Where he killed for money.
And he put
Superman in the ICU with a kryptonite bullet.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So she's going around to round up the other people who are going to be part of this mission. First, it's John Cena, who is Peacemaker. And the way she describes him is to a T exactly what Bloodshot is.
Yeah. Very funny.
Bloodsport is.
This
is going to be impossible. Yeah, very funny. And you had a good thing that I liked what you said about that. Do you want to say it again?
Well, it's just he's kind of poking fun at just the idea, several things, like the idea of someone who's just good at weapons being in a superhero universe. And he's also poking fun of like just in the other movies how there's just all these characters and you kind of don't care what their what there is to them.
Not if they're like that. Polka Dot Man, you bet I'm interested in what he can do.
Yeah.
But
there's just so many characters. It's funny to make a joke that's like, yeah, we're the same character. What? Yeah. And then they're trying to one-up each other
especially
the whole movie.
Especially in the DC universe.
Yeah. So they do that, and then they finally...
Well, then they meet Noe, which is a shark man.
Yeah.
And they believe that he might be like a descendant of some ancient shark people. Cool.
Yeah.
He's amazing. I love that character so much. And he just wants people. He has no friends because he's a shark and all he wants to do is eat people. But he's also trying to prove himself that he is basically a person.
Yeah.
Because when we're introduced to him, he's reading a book, but he's reading it upside down.
Yeah.
And I think he even says, I'm smart.
Yeah. I like read book.
Yeah. Hilarious. So then we meet Ratcatcher.
Ratcatcher 2.
Yeah. So what does 2 mean?
Well-
Because her dad is Ratcatcher?
Her dad is Ratcatcher, and they refer to her as Ratcatcher 2.
Okay. That's what it is on IMDb, too.
It's just funny, again, to go back to the David Sims thing, where it's like, we've had so many characters in these movies, like, how far in the depths of comic books are we going to go? And he's like, here's Ratcatcher 2, and he makes her the heart of the movie.
I know. Yeah, that's funny.
So they get them all together. Then they basically say they have like a PowerPoint presentation.
They make a polka dot guy.
Polka dot man.
Well, I like that part. That was funny too because they said, "Okay, well, what does he do?
What does he?
Did he throw polka dots at people?"
And then she doesn't answer.
Great.
So then we go to the little meeting. She explains the mission, and then we're like caught up.
So, yes, essentially the mission is on something Maltese. I forget the first part of the name of the country.
Yeah.
There has been this family that's run it, but they just have been assassinated, and now this other guy's in charge. But these 2 other guys want to be in charge. But they're not who you need to worry about. They've been working on this like secret extraterrestrial experimenting on human thing, and I forget what the place is called. And that's what we want to get taken care of.
The Jotunheim.
Jotunheim. You got to destroy whatever's inside it. That's the mission.
But it's really about the records within.
Well, that's the twist, Micah.
Well, they've seen the movie. They got past the spoiler part.
That's true.
So they go to the beach, and we see that the other team that we saw get murdered in the movie was a distraction so that this team could get on clear and safe.
Yes.
And while that happens, Margot Robbie is taken captive, and so is Rick Flag.
Yes.
We assume. And so we have some great stuff. We have like Polka Dot Man puking dots.
He grows dots on his face.
And then
like
he has
on his
to
body, like
expel them.
And he says all he does is explain it as a rash.
Yeah.
The makeup is really
it's crazy.
good.
Yeah. And I think it is makeup. It's like they put like LED balls under.
There was one in his mouth too, because remember he wakes up in the middle of the night and he's just like, oh,
and he goes
and pukes up dots.
Yeah.
And then you find out
that what do you find out?
You find out that Bloodsport has a phobia of rats.
Yeah.
And this is a small played for comedic effect. However, I think it is. I just really like that addition to his character because, and going back to the last movie, with Will Smith's character, he was pretty dang boring. Because all he did was an assassin that I guess shot really well and really wanted to be with his daughter.
They completely relied on his charisma, and it almost works because that's how good of an actor he is.
Yeah, but in this, it's like he's a person with fears, and that's kind of another thing that James Gunn is challenging is like, no, he's not invincible. He's scared of tiny little rats.
Yep.
Which I think is also it ends up being kind of beautiful because at the end of the movie, when rats become a good part of it, and you have that little note from Taika. Yeah. About rats are the most beautiful creatures because they're the lowest of society.
If they have a purpose, so do we.
And that's, I think he is afraid of himself. He doesn't feel self-worth. I think that's like a really big metaphor for his character.
Yeah.
So that I think is also cute. The little rat that Ratcatcher has, the little like backpack on the whole time, just waving at people.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Very cool.
It's awesome. So, also at this camp, Noe is about to eat Ratcatcher. So it's just a little bit of them getting to know each other.
Yeah.
Some laughs.
And then they basically find out that Rick Flag is in a location, and Amanda Waller says, go to them, go get him and kill with like no prejudice.
Yeah.
Just kill him. So Peacemaker and Bloodsport go into this camp and they start killing people in hilarious fashion. It's very funny. A lot of cool, like pretty long shots and stuff. Like the action sequence is really good.
One of the craziest ones was when John Cena pulls a hatchet out of a man's head and then walks up to someone sleeping and just hacks them while he's walking.
Yeah. Guys, we're having fun in the theaters.
It's
crazy. It's a DC movie and we're having fun.
Yeah. Sorry, really funny, where towards the end of that sequence, John Cena shoots a guy and Bloodsport says it's not a fatal shot. And Cena says, hold on a second. It's a compression shot or whatever. So it explodes and then the person like literally explodes.
Yeah.
And he's like, mine's cooler. And Bloodsport turns away and he's like, oh, he's right. It is cooler.
Yeah. And it was cool that like, they're talking to each other earlier in the movie, and he's like, well, I would hit more in the center than you. And Idris Elba's like, how would you do that? And he goes, smaller bullets. And there's like a payoff to that later in the movie.
Right.
When he kills him. So they wind up getting to Rick Flag, and he was actually
He was rescued, not captured.
Yeah, by the rebels. And then the person that he's with is like, how come I wasn't alerted? And they're like, oh, I don't think anyone was around.
And then she sees all of these dead bodies.
Yeah. And I think the movie does skirt the line really well, where it's like, like she would be devastated. And I think she is. And she doesn't want to work with them. They just, enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
And I think it pulls it off, actually.
Yeah.
Because Suicide Squad 1, if they did that same scene, I'd be like, why would she ever join them?
I know, but I think for this too, it's like the cause is bigger than everyone else.
Yep. And I mean, it's just a better written movie.
She's such a small character, and it's actually, like you said, it's good. I actually wanted to see who she was. She looked familiar.
Okay.
Alice Braga. She's in I Am Legend. That's got to be what it is.
So then what happens after that?
So now they're with them. One of the other funniest parts of the movie. So they're walking. They need to get to the city, they need to figure out a way to get into the city, but it's pretty much blocked off by the army, let's just say.
Yeah.
So as they're walking through the forest trying to get to a place where they can even start that part of the mission, they learn a little bit more about Polka Dot Man.
Oh yeah.
And he tells them that when he was a kid, his mom was a scientist and would experiment on him and his brothers and sisters. And what he has is a interdimensional virus. So his mom was trying to make her children superheroes. Yeah. When actually, because someone said, well, what about your brothers and sisters? Pretty much, they're all dead.
Yeah.
Because earlier in the movie, too, he said something about like, I think he doesn't like killing unless it's his mom.
Yeah.
And then, so he's telling this story about how terrible his mom was and how abusive she was. And then he looks at everyone, and they're all his mom.
Yeah, because then they're like, how do you kill? And he's like, everyone looks like my mom.
That's what it is, yeah.
Or I see my mom on everyone.
Yeah.
And they do, like, effects that
it is so funny.
It's very funny.
That's one of my favorite things. And then at one point, too, I think it's Ratcatcher 2, something happens, and she's like, that person is insane. And Polka Dot Man says, no, I'm the crazy one. Yeah. He's just kind of like forlorn.
Yeah,
and kind of woe is me.
I think she says, I thought you were the insane one. And he's like, I am.
Yeah.
After someone does something totally crazy.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, Harley Quinn, there's like an interlude almost. That's like only Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And guys,
it's good.
See previous episodes. I like this part of the movie a lot. So Harley Quinn gets captured by the bad guys, and they like how she's so anti-American.
Mm-hmm. And that's what the whole concern is, that this country, whatever this experiment is going to take over America.
Yeah.
Because they hate America.
Oh, and by the way, if you listen to the end of our Birds of Prey episode, there was a cutout part where I talked about how it was weird that Harley Quinn voted for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
And we talked about that, kind of a funny throwaway joke thing. But Mike did point out, because he sent like a cry laugh face and was like, that's very funny. And then he said, she is a felon, though, so she wouldn't have been able to vote. And I was like, oh,
even better.
So we get there, and she is being treated as a queen.
Mm-hmm.
And she spends the day with the president of that country.
Mm-hmm.
And she is like, they just have this magical day, and the whole it turns into like a romance thing.
It's a little bit like Promising Young Woman with the tone change, the hard tone change.
And so she's basically like, okay, I can be with this guy. They have crazy sex, which is also pretty funny. Which I don't always find those funny.
Also, this part of the movie is like very beautifully shot, like you said, like a romance. Because the part when he takes her to like the parrots in the cage, it's just like very beautiful.
Yeah,
looking.
It's great. And then after they have sex, he's like looking over the town.
That's after he proposes to her too.
Yes, and he says, I basically can't wait for this thing to be done because I'll rule the entire world and I will just have to, like, I can kill anyone I want, anyone who opposes me. And then he turns around and gets shot and pretty quickly dies. And as he's dying, Harley's like, you know what? I made myself a promise, and I said I have a pretty bad taste in men and a bad pattern, so I was going to kill anyone that I got close to that had any red flags, and killing children and women is a pretty big red flag.
Yeah, and she's like kind of like almost crying about it because she's like, I really didn't want to kill you.
But she's just being so, what's the term? Like she's just being so reasonable about what she's talking about as this man is losing his life.
Yeah.
It's very funny. And then they arrest her.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the team needs to recover her.
It cuts to that other guy who was like this president's right-hand man. And they said, she killed him. You are the president now. Which is almost like kind of like, it almost felt like that was his plan. They were going to hook her up with him because they thought that she would kill him.
Oh,
almost like
okay.
there was an alternate plan of that. And remember later in the movie when that guy dies and they tell this other guy, you're the president now. It's almost like they planned that.
Yeah, you're right. So there's all of that. And then she's strung up. I'm just going to stick with the Harley Quinn line. She's strung up and they're electrocuting her with a cattle prod, trying to get information out of her. And then she is able to break out, use her, Cirque du Soleil gymnast skills.
Yeah.
As we've actually seen in Suicide Squad. So it felt actually kind of like a loose tie-in to that.
That's not, I mean, yeah. I can't remember what that's called.
Yeah, I can't either. But she gets out, she like kills everybody. And then there's this great sequence where she goes through the halls of this mansion and kills everyone. Mm-hmm. Takes the javelin that Javelin Man gave her.
Is really good.
It's great. She's like jumping off the walls.
It reminded me of the good parts of Bird of Prey.
Well, so what I was thinking about this is when it was happening, I was saying this is what Birds of Prey was trying to do and wasn't doing. Because there's like animation. It's like we're seeing what's in her head. And I was like, that's what Birds of Prey was supposed to be. And it's not. And it like kind of was because the action was, I thought, good in Birds of Prey. It was.
But I get what you're saying. It was just like that, but with an artistic flair to it.
Yes.
So as she's murdering, there's like flowers exploding around her.
Yeah.
And animated birds.
Yeah.
And she's using Flula's javelin. Oh, sorry.
But then she escapes, and as she escapes, the rest of the Suicide Squad had caught up. And they're like getting ready to, you've seen it in the trailer. And you've seen the movie now. They're like getting ready to get her out. And then she's like, hey guys, what you doing? Mm-hmm. And they're like, we were going to get you out. We had this great plan and everything. And
she's just like so touched by that.
She is,
and it's like, I can go back in.
Yeah. Now, and before that, I wanted to comment too, they go to this bar, the rest of the team, and they have like a really fun night together until the military comes. Mm-hmm. And I just want to say, that it reminds me of that horrible scene in Suicide Squad.
When they go to the bar.
And it just feels like they're not connecting in a real way, and this felt like they actually did. And so I liked this scene, and it made sense to me that they were all connecting.
And that was before that was they were in the bus, and...
right.
We get Ratcatcher's 2 backstory.
Right.
And she grew up in Portugal with her and her father, and they were destitute. And he was a heroin addict. I do like how they did. It kind of reminded me of like a French movie or something, where like she's saying this, and the flashback is like the reflection of the window that she's looking out of. You know.
Yeah.
And her dad is played by Taika Waititi.
Which at this point I was like, wait, you hired him for like 3 still images? That's kind of crazy.
It was
and distracting actually.
Yeah.
But then when they had him say just the one line in the movie at the end, I was like, you're right. You did have to hire like an actor that was recognizable and that we'd trust to deliver that line.
And he's just so fun to look at.
Yeah. Oh, he's the best.
Meaning he's a good looking person. I didn't mean like he looks weird or something. But yeah, she says that she loved her father very much, even though she knew that he had a lot of addictions and problems. And he provided for her the best that he could. And he was the one who created the things that she uses to control the rats.
Yep.
And she tells Bloodsport, that she wishes that she could give that love of her father to him. And it's just so sweet. I love it.
It is.
I have a question.
Okay.
So the whole reason they're going to this club is to find the Thinker.
Yes. Who is cool design, practical.
That's what I had a question about.
He has like it looks like
he's played by
syringes
Peter
in his head.
Capaldi, who was in Doctor Who. Wait,
that makes sense.
He might be a doctor.
I think he is.
And then he's also in World War Z, playing WHO doctor, World Health Organization doctor, also known as Who doctor. Yeah. Anyway.
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah.
So the design's great. I love the design. But is it just to show that like he's just got a big brain? And he through science those things, it's been making him smarter.
Yeah. I'm sure it's comic book related, but
I liked it in the flashback with that he had less things on his head.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And when stuff, I wasn't for sure, but when stuff started falling down, I think some of them got knocked off his head. I think.
Oh, really?
But I'm not sure.
Okay.
So
he frequents this nightclub. That's why they're at the nightclub.
Yeah.
To get him.
And, they get captured and stuff, then they get out, and then they get Harley. Let's, zoom past a little bit. And then that guy, the Thinker, helps them break into the Jotunheim.
Mm-hmm.
And here is where they're laying their charges, and the part is called Dirty Little Secrets, because there's titles of sequences in the movie.
Yeah. I love that throughout. It's just so it just keeps it fresh and fun.
Yeah.
And light, okay?
Light.
But earlier in the movie, they do explain what is the secret in the Jotunheim. And it's this giant space starfish, which reminds me of it just feels like such a Guardians thing.
Oh yeah.
It reminded me of the space worm that they fight in Volume 2. But the starfish is actually scary.
It looks great.
It looks really good, but what it does is scary, man. And
totally.
This type of graphic, gross goriness is a kind that freaks me out. Because when they basically these American scientists or astronauts find this starfish and bring it into their ship, and it releases tiny starfish that attach to people's faces, and it basically releases its consciousness.
Yeah.
And so when when a starfish gets on your face, you become the starfish. And you're an extension of it. So for the past 30 years, the Thinker has been testing on it and stuff, and he's been experimenting on people in that way. So when they get to the Jotunheim, to that part, it's Ratcatcher, Rick Flag, and the Thinker. You see all these people, these starfishes on their face. And it's just gross and scary and unsettling. And then you see some of the people they've tested on, and it is one of those things where they're not really showing you a lot. I mean, there's a lot. It's gross. But it is but why? But they don't explain what the test is.
But when they show the one where the starfish is off him and his face is starfish imploded in.
Yeah.
Nasty.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so you're telling me that you are freaked out in a movie by something that can cause almost a pandemic sort of response? That's scary to you right now?
A little bit, yeah.
It was very funny. Grayson texted me this morning, and he said, as a joke, I'm sure, he said, "What do you think the starfish represented?" And I said, corporate America and the militarization of international countries, also our desperate desire to control nature instead of leaving it be. That was funny. And I think it actually is kind of in the movie.
Yeah.
Because they find out that the U.S. started this thing, and the reason that they're there is to destroy records. But she only let Peacemaker know that because he'll create peace if he has to kill any woman, man, or child.
That's his bad. What makes him a bad guy flaw thing. It's kind of reminds me of the Punisher
Yeah.
in that way where it is like, I will
This
do
is much more
anything.
self-aware than the Punisher.
Much more self-aware, absolutely. But it is just like, I will be as violent as I need to be to serve justice and what
Yeah.
I believe is justice.
Yeah.
You know? So Rick Flag realizes all of this and he is like, this is wrong.
Yeah.
I need to like get this out to people.
Uh-huh.
And that's when you're saying Peacemaker is not letting him do that. And what a cool shot when him and Rick Flag start fighting and you're seeing it on his helmet.
Oh my gosh, that shot was amazing.
It was like a
it's like
almost
turning,
yeah,
and you're seeing just the reflection of them two duking it out.
amazing.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And so they're fighting, and Rick Flag's like, I serve the U.S., but I didn't serve it to protect lies. Like, people need to know about this. This is wrong.
Yeah.
The U.S. is in the wrong, and I'm going to stand up for what's right. Peacemaker's like, no, you're not, buddy.
That's not how it's gonna work.
So they start fighting, and then like the whole building like starts collapsing. And
yeah,
then it says,
did take me 8 minutes later.
It says 8 minutes earlier.
But we're with them. Sorry, yeah, they're with them for a long time, and I'm just thinking, what is happening with the other people? Like it was that long.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when it does the 8 minutes earlier, it's like, oh, okay. I just really thought that potentially like I was gonna get out of this movie and be like really good. Kind of weird that they just kind of forgot about those other characters.
Yeah.
Obviously they didn't.
Well, and that's another thing when you think about the old movie is there were points where it just felt like they were like, oh, I guess we have to cut back to this character and they'll also do nothing. And
right.
And this is like it actually tricked you into thinking like, did he not write this well? And then it goes 8 minutes earlier and it shows you what the other characters were doing.
So I like going to Noe with what's going on with him.
Yes.
Earlier in the movie, he couldn't get into the club because he is not human.
Uh-huh.
So he is left to just wait in the van for them. And he just looks sad. And even earlier than that, when he's about to eat Ratcatcher and they stop him and everything, and Ratcatcher tells him, like, you don't have friends, but you wouldn't eat friends, right?
Yeah.
So I would love to be your friend. We're all your friend.
Yeah.
So he, like, gains a family in this, which is, you know, it's a very, I feel like, James Gunn thing that I love.
Totally.
But so when they're setting the charges in the building, and he, very funny, makes a little clay sculpture of Peacemaker. And Peacemaker is like, not the time. But thanks, I guess. And he goes and he just leaves Noe.
Yeah.
Like they do spend the time to show him being alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's sweet. So he starts just kind of wandering around. Like no one's really paying attention to what he's doing. And he gets to this like aquarium. And there are these little like weird jellyfish.
Yeah.
Really cute jellyfish creatures that are like mimicking him. And he is saying that they're his friends.
Yeah.
Like it's very sweet.
Very cute. And the music's crazy good. Bless you.
Thanks. Yeah, the music is so good. And it was just, I am a little curious, like, why they chose to do that with that character, make him, like, the loner, other than, like, an obvious, he's just not, like, he is not like everyone else.
Right.
Because when the building explodes and he gets thrown out of the building with everyone else, or, like, with the water, and those, well, even before that, those things get released from the tank, and they start, like, trying to eat him.
Yeah.
And attach themselves to him. So they're cute, but they're deadly. And I'm just wondering if that has anything to do with, like, don't be friends with anybody. Like be careful who you choose.
Yeah.
To like open yourself up to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's something there that I haven't quite figured out, but it does feel like, you know, he's an outsider and maybe he'll always kind of be an outsider. But it feels like the Suicide Squad actually accept him at the end of the movie.
Definitely.
Like they're his actual family.
Well, it's almost like someone tells him, we're your friends now. And then he sees these other things and they're like, oh, they could be my friends now.
Yeah.
And then maybe it's almost like a reminder, like you can't get along with everyone.
Yeah.
Like get along, like be with the people, choose to be with the people who choose to be with you.
Yeah.
I think I'm reading too much into it, but I just think it's
so.
very sweet.
We know how much James Gunn gets into friendship in his movies. I don't think that's reading too much. Maybe too little, if anything.
Oh. So what is
must have been so great for Sly Stallone to just work like one day, just record a bunch of lines and then be done.
Who do you think worked more, Vin Diesel or Sylvester Stallone? And
probably Vin Diesel, because I think he also did it in other languages.
Yeah, he did.
So Bloodsport and Harley and Polka Dot Man, they are going through, they're setting the charges. We've already said that, I think. But then
They're in like an office.
they're in an office, and
Polka Dot Man drops some charges, and he says, "Oh, frizzle frazzle," I think is what he says.
he drops some charges, and then
Just so sweet.
because that one guy dies,
Milton.
So
yeah,
who is like not powered. He shouldn't have gone with them.
But that's a joke.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
I'm saying it's just so funny because even when so he's just like the driver, and he drives them there. And when they go into the building, he went with them, and I thought to myself, that's pretty funny that he's going. Like, what is he doing?
This random guy is part of the team, and then he gets killed, and then Polka Dot Man, Milton.
Yeah, and then
I
Harley
really liked that guy.
Harley and Bloodsport are like, who is that?
Yeah, and he was saying that he was helping them. Yeah, Harley can't remember him at all, and then she sees his bloody face, and she's like, "Oh, Milton."
And then he releases a bunch of polka dots.
Yeah.
And then it starts the explosion early.
Yeah.
And then there's this scene, and I was thinking about this scene where Idris Elba is going down each level as the roof is collapsing. That scene in like any other movie would suck and be so annoying, but this movie has earned it.
Yeah.
And there's so many character moments that it's just not a big deal.
Yeah.
Like it's a big deal. Like it actually works the way it's intended. Because I could see another action movie or even another superhero movie doing this, and I'd be like, really? Can we go?
I know.
But it totally works.
Yeah, like you said, I think they earned it.
And I think it also helps that it serves the story because he falls down and then he's right where Peacemaker and Flag are fighting.
No, Peacemaker is about to kill Rat Tracker.
Oh, so he'd already killed Ratcatcher.
Ratcatcher.
Oh yeah, he'd already killed
And
Rick.
she stole the drive, and he was going to kill her and say basically she's means to an end or collateral. So he's about to kill her, and then Bloodsport shows up, and they both shoot their guns at the same time.
But Bloodsport's bullet is smaller, and it rips right through and hits and kills Peacemaker.
Yes.
Or what we believe he's dead.
And so Harley, Polka Dot Man, and No Way are out in front.
Yeah.
And No Way's like still ripping off those things off of him, but he's fine.
Yeah.
Takes a lot to kill that guy.
I know, because then the army just unloads on him.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, he's like the Hulk. It just doesn't penetrate his skin.
No. And that's when he rips someone up like in half.
Yeah. Oh,
He eats a guy. He's like snacking on a guy's head. That's pretty gross.
Yeah. And then Starro, the huge starfish, breaks out. It's huge.
It's huge. It's scary.
By the way, so funny. I already told Jordan this, but there was an article that news coverage, like online journalism for superhero stuff, is so bad.
Yeah.
It is like the worst possible journalism. Because they take one sentence, they make a whole article about it, and it's usually
anything
out of
to
context.
get clicks.
Yeah. And there was someone who just the headline was like how James Gunn's Suicide Squad could be more grounded than Marvel.
Okay.
Or realistic or something like that. And someone just took a screen cap of that, and then they took a screen cap of the shark eating a man. And they just...
makes it more grounded than Marvel?
No.
Oh.
Someone was making fun of the article.
Okay.
They took a picture of the article headline, and then they took a picture of King Shark eating someone.
Yeah.
And they're like, really?
Yeah, right. That's funny.
Because this movie is just crazy. And I think it's it's a perfect example of something we complain about a lot, is like, you can be realistic in your superhero movies, but don't tamper that down. Like, if you're going to have a shark character in this movie, don't make it realistic. Just make him a shark character that eats people.
Yeah, let it eat people.
And I think James Gunn is, like, perfect at that. Because Guardians is that same thing where he's like, yeah, he's a tree. Like, he's going to do tree things. I'm not going to spend an hour with, like, a scientist who
No.
explains why this actually makes sense.
Well,
or
it's also
something.
just knowing what the movie is too. For like Guardians, it's all cosmic, and once you're out in space and other things are happening, you can't
Everything's on
explain
limits.
it.
Yeah.
You can't explain anything. And then in this, you have a potentially ancient creature that is a shark.
yeah.
You can't explain it scientifically.
Yeah, just
So
let
please
it be.
don't try.
And that's what Aquaman did so well too.
Yeah. Yeah. So Starro gets out. He is big. And
Really big.
It unleashes all of the tiny starfishes of itself, and it's raining down over the island.
Those shots were like
really good.
Strangely like artistic and beautiful.
Yeah. It's just good. He did a good job.
He did a great job. The more I think about the movie, the more I like it.
That's like a part that was so scary to me is there might have been music, but I feel like there wasn't music when it released the starfishes.
Yeah.
And it's almost like we were watching news footage of these things floating in the air, and you don't know what they are and what they do, and then they just start landing on people's faces.
Yeah. Not
What?
good. Yeah.
That's scary.
So they're doing that, and then basically this is the big showdown, and there's a great shot where they kind of band together, they're all fighting, and Polka Dot Man imagines Starro as his mom. Very funny.
So funny.
He unleashes his polka dots, and then he says, "I'm a superhero."
Yeah.
And then he dies.
Yeah.
That was like the one death where I was like, I don't know that you needed to do
it was
him.
almost like that still feels tropey. Where someone actualizes themselves or does something big. But it's also like an irreverent movie.
Oh yeah.
So it makes sense, but almost like maybe it would have been better if it didn't happen because that's what we expected.
Yeah, like we expected the unexpected.
Yeah.
But
I also just really liked him.
I know. I wanted him because I'm sure James Gunn is gonna make a sequel, right? There's like no way they don't make Suicide Squad 2.
I don't see a way.
And I saw in the stuff I was reading for this that DC's pretty much like, yeah, we want to keep working with you. They already ordered Peacemaker for
that's
HBO.
True. Yeah.
I believe they started filming it already. As long as this movie doesn't lose too much money because of the situation it's in, I think that they'll definitely. Which you remember at the beginning we talked about how like box office wise, we're not sure.
Yeah. Right.
But as long as it does okay,
yeah,
I think they'll hire him again.
Yeah.
He'll just have to do Guardians first. I mean, maybe
maybe
he'll just bounce back and forth.
Well, that's my caveat to this whole thing. He can make another one, but you got to make Guardians first.
Well,
and I know what I
slated.
say really matters.
He is like...
But it's because of what I say is what matters.
Yeah. Well, and for those who are wondering, next Christmas, 2022, we get the holiday special.
Yes.
And then the following year, we get Guardians 3. That's all on the calendar.
Yep.
So they have the big fight. It's cool. The action's great.
So this is throughout it, Bloodsport has been the leader, but I feel like this is when he really, really, really is a leader. Oh, it's because of this. I'm remembering. Most of the time they've been on the island, they can't contact Viola Davis.
Yeah.
And then once the building's destroyed, she can now freely contact with them again. And remember, people, if they do something outside of the plan, she can just kill them with a push of a button.
Yes.
So,
I'm glad you remember this scene.
Yeah. So they see the starfishes being unleashed across this island. And at first, Bloodsport's like, well, my job's done.
Yeah.
But that's also what's good about the characters here. Because you saw he was not a great guy, didn't care about anything, but he's like, the acting is so good. But you see that internal struggle where he's like, can we actually let this island fall?
Yeah, and at first he's like, no, we're going to let it fall. I don't care.
Yeah. But
then he kind of turns around and he's like, all right.
Yeah.
And then they all turn around. And I like Polka Dot Man, how he's like walking away and everyone else leaves. And then he just kind of turns around like, okay.
Yeah, funny.
Almost like he couldn't care either way.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, everyone else is doing it, sure.
Yeah. So he really becomes the leader now. So in the city while they're fighting it, he is leading people, telling them what to do. Polka Dot Man dies. So then he gets Harley get up, go high. So she gets up onto a building.
Let me cut you off though.
Yeah.
But you're missing the part that I almost missed is that when they start walking away.
Oh yeah, right.
Waller says, stop, I'm going to kill you. And she opens up the briefcase.
Oh, yeah.
And then one of the IT people smashes her on the head with a chair or something
No,
and
with a
knocks
golf
her out.
club.
Oh, that she was using earlier.
Yeah.
Hits her with a golf club, and they're like, you're free to, like, proceed with the mission. This is Control. And they start helping them.
Yeah.
And that was awesome.
I loved that.
Because we finally got the comeuppance for this character that has been so bad in these movies.
Yeah.
I mean bad, like she's just evil.
Yeah.
And it felt really good. It was very cathartic when that happened.
Yes.
And it was cool to see the Control team step up and say, we need to do the right thing.
It was great too because they showed that they spent so much time. We spent so much time with them, more than usual, with the people behind the computer. Because even at the beginning of the movie, you see them taking bets on which person's gonna die or not. So there's like a kind of a fun camaraderie going on here. But even throughout the movie, they're moral. So they're like questioning, is this okay? Is this right? Yeah. And then they just take it into their own hands to do the right thing. Like these characters develop and they're so minor characters.
Yeah.
But when they do that, when they hit her in the head, it's like, yeah. It's cool.
It's great. So Harley
goes up into a building to get a higher advantage.
Knows what to do with the javelin now.
Knows what to do with the javelin. And then Noe's trying to eat the starfish.
Yeah.
Starfish throws him into a building. The building collapses onto the building that Harley's on. As she falls into whatever's going on. Obviously, she's not dead. She comes back. And then Rat Catcher
2
calls all the rats.
Yes, which was a cool moment.
It was awesome.
And she remembers her father.
Yeah. So right before that.
Okay.
So she calls all the rats. It's stopping the people who are trying to get after them. And then it starts climbing up the starfish.
Yeah.
And that's when Harley runs and stabs it through the eye with the javelin.
And goes into like a pool of its eye.
And it's like kind of beautiful.
It is.
And especially kind of beautiful watching these rats
like eat it apart.
Its eye, like eat it from the inside out. It's gross.
Well, if
pretty.
rats have purpose, then we do too.
Yeah. So then,
you know, there's got to be something to. So she's controlling these rats. There's like a limitless supply of rats, and the starfish was attempting to create a limitless supply of like its own mind, one hive mind.
Yeah.
To kill everyone, and it was defeated by a hive mind. Yeah. That's kind of cool and poetic.
Yeah.
This movie is art.
Yeah, so then while that's happening, that's when we get the cut to Taika and Ratcatcher 2 as a child. And that's when he says, what does he say?
She says, why the rats, Dad?
Yeah.
And he says, if a rat has purpose, then so do we. If like the lowliest of creatures has purpose, then we do too.
And this part of the score is like emotional. You're starting to feel things in your heart that you never thought you would feel watching a Suicide Squad movie.
Well, it doesn't quite reach the length of like Rocket at the end of Guardians.
Oh, no.
But I think it reaches the height of like I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. Well, it hits that height.
It does,
which is a big high.
But those two things that you're talking about happens in the second movie, and I don't know if that would have been achieved if that was in the first movie.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So I have to think more of Guardians 1.
Uh-huh.
Which we watched not that long ago, and it pretty much made us cry at the end anyway.
Yeah.
Just very sweet. And while she's commanding the rats and recalling this memory, Bloodsport is the rats are climbing all over him, and he is freaking out, but you can see he's like understanding the usefulness at that point.
Yeah.
Because he has this intense phobia. And it's like he is seeing these lowly rats, these low people of society like himself doing something. And I think it's cool.
It's great.
So, starfish dead.
Oh, and the starfish through another person says,
oh gosh,
what does
I
it
was
say?
just okay with floating in the stars or something like that.
Yeah, and that's pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah.
If America didn't just mess with this starfish, it could have just lived its life out peacefully floating amongst the stars. Mm-hmm. But it had to be ruined.
That makes you want to just cry hearing that. Like,
well, so here's two things I got to say about this climax of the movie. One, this is usually the point in pretty much any action movie that gets this big that it kind of loses me and it gets boring. But the action and the sequences and the character developments are good enough, great enough, that I'm invested the entire time.
Yeah.
And that's the thing we talk about in Guardians 2 episode a lot, is that he'll do these huge things, but then he zooms in on a character having a moment, like Rocket and Groot inside the asteroid talking about the bomb while there's chaos going on. And it just brings it personal.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I want to say is that I'm shocked that I would feel for a gigantic monster at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like every aspect of this is like heartfelt. It's great.
Well, just
It's a
hearing
great
it say
movie.
that, you're just like, oh, it was just defending itself this whole time.
Yeah.
It wasn't malicious. It
No.
was just trying to not die. And it died.
Yeah. And and Bloodsport's, I actually like this. Bloodsport's daughter sees him on TV and says, "That's my dad." She cries and she's like, "I can't believe it." But they don't have another moment together, which I think actually works better than if they got together and, at the end of Suicide Squad 1 where he's like, "I get to see my daughter
Well,
every
I think
day,
that's like he's
week
showing
or whatever."
Yeah, he's showing his valor and like being heroic, showing it by doing it. He's not trying to prove it to her. Of course, he did this for her. She doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And it's almost like she doesn't need to know that. It's just like that's the first time in her life she's been proud of her dad, and he didn't have to. It was just by seeing it. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm muddying the waters, but that's the beautiful thing about it.
And then, I mean, that's pretty much it.
So they make a deal with Viola Davis that if they let them go as free people, they will not leak the drive to the press. And she has to comply. And she lets them do it. And it's crazy too, when she's talking to him, she's like looking out her office window at all the people who just like took her over. And I'm just like, what is going to happen with that?
I know.
That's interesting.
Well, there's just enough loose threads that this movie totally is contained.
Yeah.
We don't need another one, but if they made another one, there's a lot of threads that he can pull on to make a new story.
Yeah.
Much like, again, in Guardians, how he says a couple things about like, "Oh, you're half celestial, Peter."
Oh, yeah.
And you're kind of like, when I first watched it, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Then once you'd seen Guardians 2, it was like, oh, he made a whole movie out of that one line. What?
Yeah.
So then we have it says the Suicide Squad.
Well, I think it's sweet when they're in the helicopter and they're all finally like falling asleep from exhaustion. And Ratcatcher 2 falls asleep on No Way, which is so sweet. And the Harley falls asleep, and then the rat goes on Bloodsport's knee. And this rat has been trying to befriend him the whole movie.
And he pets it.
And he just pets it, and he just gets a smile on his face like, it's not so bad.
But it's really hard for him to pet it.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, but that was like, that's big for me.
Yeah. And then it lays down on his knee.
Yeah.
He did it again. There's a first credit scene where Weasel gets up on the beach and waddles away.
This is how he gets up. Well, I can't actually imitate it, but he gets up by snorting and snarling.
Yeah. And
it's just the noises he makes are awful.
And the waddling, it's like
a giant puppet.
It's kind of like he's jumping from one foot to the other.
The really gross thing, probably one of the grossest, is that it's kind of fat, but its arms and
really
legs
skinny.
are so skinny.
It's weird.
It's gross, and I love it, and I can't look away.
Well, when that happened, I was like, okay, he understands that we all want to see this thing again.
Yeah, I really like too at the beginning of the movie when they introduced him and everyone else. They're like, and we have Weasel. And well, that was before they weren't sure what it was. Yeah. And at one point, someone says, "Is it a werewolf?" And Harley gets so excited, and then Pete Davidson freaks out because he's sitting next to it, and Rick Flag just says, "It's just a weasel. He's not going to eat anybody."
Well, he has 27 children.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, the Weasel's cool.
More Weasel, please.
And then there's a post-credit scene where Peacemaker is making his recovery in the hospital, which makes sense. There's a show going to come out.
Why? If he actually died, I just thought it'd be a prequel.
That's what I thought too.
But
and I
yeah.
did read that I think it might be a little of both.
Cool.
So, yeah, I mean, it's great. It's a great movie. If you like action, see it. You saw it. We got to past the spoiler part. It's a great movie.
And it just looked really good.
It looked fantastic.
It looked so good.
So, do you know what that means, though? Well, do you have any final thoughts on this movie?
See it. If you listen to this without seeing it yet, go watch it.
Okay. Next thought. Next week, we start our series on The Godfather. This month on Patreon, we're on Space Jam: A New Legacy, a movie that is about as bad as it gets.
Yep.
So hear us be really depressed if you want to listen to that. Patreon.com/MICAHMCCAW. And then lastly, but not leastly, what are our DC rankings? Jordan?
Hit me with yours.
Okay, mine is, I got to move this so I can see a little bit better. At the very bottom, I have Justice League.
Yeah.
Then right above that, I have Suicide Squad, 2016.
Wait, you liked Justice League worse?
I did. On this time around, Justice League to me is like not even fun to watch as a joke the second time around. Suicide Squad is kind of like hilarious with how bad it is. So it's sort of like, oh, guys. Well, they're both, it depends on the day. I hate them both so much. They're tied for bottom. Then I have at number 8, actually, Birds of Prey.
Okay.
A horrible movie. Then I have Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Then Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, and this is going to surprise people, but then I would go Aquaman, then Wonder Woman 1984. And then this is hard.
What's the last two?
I think right now I'm going to say The Suicide Squad number 2 and then Shazam number 1.
Okay.
But that could change because actually the more we talk about the movie, the more I think it's better than Shazam.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
So that is my ranking, and maybe when we cover the next DC movie, whenever it comes out, I think it'll be The Flash next year. We can update our rankings.
Well, I know where that one's going for you, so you don't really need to update it.
The bottom?
Yeah.
Probably.
So for me, it's it's Suicide Squad, 2016, then Justice League,
Okay.
then probably Birds of Prey as well.
Yeah. Good choice.
And then Batman versus Superman, Man of Steel. I know I'm going the same as you right now.
Yeah. Well, we pretty much agreed on this entire
Wonder Woman,
series.
Aquaman, Wonder Woman 1984,
Uh-huh.
Shazam, The Suicide Squad.
So we only switched our top and our bottoms. That's it.
I just like the movie I just saw. I probably would rewatch it over all the other ones every day.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I would put it at number 1.
Yeah.
You put a giant shark in a movie, it's going to be one of my favorite movies.
I think for me, it might just simply come down to the fact that I've seen Shazam twice now.
Mm-hmm.
Once I see the Suicide Squad again, maybe I'll change my tune. Maybe it is better, though. Maybe it is 1.
On it.
I'll sleep on it. We will get back to you on that rating when we cover The Flash next year, the summer of next year. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah.
We made it through the series, and there was a payoff. We got to see the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, there was.
So we'll
Hope we didn't make you too mad on some of our opinions on some of the movies.
Well, I would imagine that Wonder Woman 84 got people like with pitchforks coming to our house because I think Biden just passed the thing where it's like illegal to like that movie.
Oh, he didn't like it?
I guess not.
Oh.
He passed an entire thing.
I feel like he'd be a 1984 guy.
Yeah, he probably liked it.
He's just into making wishes.
Yeah. Or it's fun.
Yeah.
All right, so next week is The Godfather. So tune in to hear some offers that you cannot refuse.
Bye.